So, I hadn't written fiction in like 4 years, and I don't usually read fiction. It's creative nonfiction is more what I do, but this story woke me up in the middle of the night about a year ago. And I have a longer version I've been working on, but I've kind of condensed it down for tonight. So this piece is called Out of Body. Imagine you wake in the middle of the night from half sleep, having sex with him, having him in your mouth, telling him you enjoy going down on him, telling him you like the taste of salt on your tongue. No, having sex with yourself. Turned on without a body to hold but yourself. The taste of pussy on your middle finger, slipping your hand up your hip, the way he used to, the way he did 2 weeks ago, like 5 years ago, and yesterday, all at the same time. It's in that moment you realize the man you can't get enough of is gone forever, gone from this planet and every worldly touch you crave to give him. His wife tells you to pack your things, that the house is hers. And she, her, is an elusive mutter, an unwanted utterance you both had avoided so many times. In fact, before now, she rarely existed beyond a concept, like a mother or a sister you never met. But now she wants to make decisions about where to donate his belongings, items you can't possibly breathe in long enough to keep his scent alive, dreading the day you can no longer smell him, no longer hear his voice, call your name. Baby, can you pass the butter, remote, glass, cat, salt? Darling, how did I miss that? When a girl like you, not see it, ever not lose my mind. Sugar tits, that is a fine looking ass you got there. An amazing book. You're crazy if you don't think so. Going to make me hard. Not necessary. I'll do the dishes tomorrow. Russell says that it's better to forget the dead, but I kept thinking that if I remembered these things hard enough, maybe I could finally make myself cry. Bubba James Russell was a Cajun redneck bear. He stood 6'4" with one blue eye and one brown eye. He moved here from the bayou after the storm that took his sister, Cindy. Cindy was dead, and as far as he was concerned, Louisiana was dead to him too. Or at least it had gone on living without him, so it might as well have been dead. Russell's place sat adjacent to the cemetery. He was a one-stop shop of coffins and cemetery care. If you needed someone to catch a raccoon, he could do that too, and for free, but taxidermy would cost you. He hadn't been with a man in 7 years, but he told me he had his eye on a couple of fellas around town. But it would take a real special man to win his heart this time. He was done with playing games. He said, "There's too much heartbreak in this world to go looking for new ways of breaking hearts or getting broken for that matter." You and I, we met in the rain. We both should have known better. It's Florida. It always rains. But this was monsoon rain, sideways rain. We paid the price for ignoring weather warnings, and there we were running down the street, ending up together under an awning like two guppies stranded on the sidewalk. We heard a loud crack, a beat of silence, and the inevitable boom, too close for comfort. The ground below us shook as wind picked up. A gigantic hot yellow stray recycle bin rolled past us. "Well, this is fucked up," you said. "Huh, I didn't even know they came in that size," I said. "Got any suggestions?" "Yeah, follow me." I knew one place 3 doors down left open when the rest of the sidewalk rolled up. I thought about the word laundromat, how it takes forever to roll off the tongue, and it never quite sounds like a real word. Once inside, I noticed, but didn't notice, you slipped a wedding ring into the wallet you threw on top of a washer. The storm raged on, no attendant in sight. We stood silent for a moment as two lone fools in front of a glorious wall of dryers. I shrugged, and you said, "Better than freezing our asses off." So I kicked off my flip-flops. We laughed at you taking off your socks and shoes. wet white cotton suction. You refused to let your bare feet touch the dirty floor. Something about how even Huffington Post said Ebola had been found on laundry room floors, and I called you a liar, even though I didn't know your name yet. You squirmed to take off one sock at a time while standing up, managing a strange dance, reinserting each foot into a wet shoe, which made a soggy gush sound every time you slammed down while trying to correct your balance. You nearly fell over and hit your head on a washer, but I caught you by your elbow. We were then two strangers stripping, self-conscious in guppy bodies, and the situation, well, we're adults here, you said. Yes, of course, I said. My legs needed more assistance than yours. Jeans ziplocked wet to my body. You yanked at the ankles while I tried my damnedest to unroll the thighs, my ass smashed against a washer for leverage. Why are women so insistent on wearing tight jeans? Why do you think? I wriggled one leg free. Point taken. You tugged harder. I nearly fell, but you caught me in one giant, clumsy, all-encompassing embrace, inadvertently binding my arms to my torso. Flopsy guppy I was. I let out a high-pitched scream on our way down, both of us swinging into a triple Lutz metallic thud against the side of a washer, thrown fish smacking the inside of a boat, sliding down to the floor. We both apologized, profusely, still in a clumsy embrace, and then you said, "Personally, I prefer to use Tide over All in Gain." What? Oh, honestly, I think I prefer Woolite. Woolite dark? Only way to go, really. Interesting. You looked at me seriously this time, and before I knew what I was doing, I slipped my fingers over your shirt, feeling for each button, looking down, pretending not to notice you staring right at me, tending to those buttons like they were wires on a bomb. You watched me carefully undo each one. I helped you unroll wet sleeves and slip your arms out. For a breath, we sat there in a tangled heap of limbs and wet clothing on the Ebola-filled floor. Then you lifted up my lavender t-shirt, painted wet on my skin. I made it in time to see her get the news from the surgeon. I'd like to say that I sobbed, because it sounds like the right, decent thing to do. I'd like to say that the details of mangled cars, jaws of life, resuscitation, and everything we could do took hold of me in a way that led to an outpouring of tears, a flood of sadness, some kind of release. But she was lucky in that regard. She sobbed like a good wife. I watched the role I should have been playing and then hid like a good coward, frozen, immobile, against a baby vomit-colored hospital wall. I couldn't feel a thing. We sat on the washers in our undies while our clothes rotated in dueling dryers. I kept thinking these three things. 1. Nice watermelon-themed boxers, dude. 2. I shouldn't stare at his crotch. And 3. Why did I wear this bra of all bras? I wondered if I should have worn a different one for the occasion. For God's sakes, why did I have to wear the beige one? When you got our clothes out of the dryer, you dropped one of your socks on the laundromat floor and then wouldn't touch it again. You said it was dead to you. I snuck into the hospital room to a sheet over a bundle. I pulled it back slowly, thinking that if I allowed myself to fully experience the scene, that maybe I might cry. But nothing came. So I touched him. I ran my fingers along his face and the jagged contours of what was left. Still nothing. I touched the wounds. Seeing is believing, but feeling is acknowledging, I told myself. strange. My wounds seemed boundless, but his wounds had a beginning and a definitive end I'll never understand. I expected when I ran my fingers across and slipped them in, I would drown in blood, down a rabbit hole of carnage. I'd get sucked into a black hole, a vortex. Something surely would swallow me whole, and I hoped it would. But I hit bone, I hit organs, I hit gauze, clamps, tubes, anything to fill him whole or keep him from losing his whole. I hit table. No matter where I touched him, I couldn't fall far enough to vanish into the wake of his body. Sometimes, when our love rotted like fruit, he'd call her up just to pick a fight. I don't know whether because he missed her or because he needed to experience love as chaos. I never had to deal with her firsthand, at least not until after he died. That morning, she let herself into his house, my house, our house, telling me it was now her house. "Good morning, slut," she said, hovering over me in bed. "Looks like he never bothered to include you in the will. Guess what? The place is mine now, and I'm selling it. There's boxes in the living room for you. Go fuck yourself." The moving company hauled furniture out the front door. The wife would take everything, not a piece of him left anywhere. She never liked his sense of adventure. Even in death, she had to keep him in the ground. The casket was her idea, and frankly, he would have hated a casket, and particularly that casket. Thought it cheap and gaudy, thought it suffocating, but he would have said to me, "Baby, it's not worth it. Just let it go." And I would have let it go, but now he's not here, and now I can't let anything go. In the parking lot the other day, I personally walked up to the douche with pickup truck balls hanging low off his Chevy, and I told him he was a douche. At the grocery store, I told some bratty kid to shut the fuck up about wanting grape-flavored popsicles. On the phone, I threatened American Express I'd machete up the entire office in India if they called me again before 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I said to her standing next to that casket, "Well, Jesus fucking Christ, might as well have a rhinestone-encrusted chain and padlock on the fucking thing too. Why the fuck not?" He was my husband. You get that, right? See, that was the problem all along. He wasn't anybody's to have. He wasn't yours, and he wasn't mine. Russell and I cracked open a couple of cold ones on his front porch next to the cemetery, in between planting his late sister Cindy's favorite flowers along the gate. We clanked bottles and took swigs. I hate that bitch. She has her own damn house and doesn't even need the money, I said. "Forgive me, darling. I know you don't want to hear it. You've been together how many years? What's your point, Russell? Spit it out." It was sort of thoughtless that he... And you know what? Maybe if Cindy had actually given two shits about you, she would have... But I stopped myself when I saw the hurt on his face. Even if I couldn't seem to break, I couldn't bring myself to break someone else instead. So there I was, picked up the shovel and started walking. Across the lawn, through the gate, across 30-some graves, past the weeping willow and wide oaks, under all the Spanish moss trying its best to kiss my scalp, until I came to my dead lover's grave. And I just started digging. I really didn't know what was going to happen next. I just kept digging. Russell crept up with his wheelbarrow, shovel, and other supplies. He didn't ask me. He didn't have to. We two silent grave diggers. It needed to be done. We dug all day until finally we hit casket. We threw our shovels back up on higher ground, and Russell climbed out, standing back to witness. I wiped the sweat from my brow with the back of my hand, hair matted to my face, dirt everywhere. I kicked off my flip-flops I took a breath. Then I took off my jeans. I took off my t-shirt. I took off my panties. I took off my bra. First, just a murmur. And then it bellowed out of me as a wail. I lay on the casket, body trembling, nude. I cried so hard I could barely breathe. Russell jumped back in, collected me into his arms, both of us crying, until I said, "Russell, do you have—" "Yes," he said. So I picked up my bra on our way out of the grave. Russell uncovered kerosene in his wheelbarrow and handed me his lighter. I poured the kerosene over the grave, the casket, and my clothes, then lit the bra on fire. I let that fucker achieve a good flame before dropping it in. We stood back and watched the fire take shape, swelling higher and higher and higher. "Let's add some firewood," Russell said. And that's when the laughter began. Until, finally, we were laughing so hard we fell over laughing, as the fire, so hot and sweet, raged on. Thank you.